Welcome, I'm Don Norcross. Today I'm joined by two leaders from the Harriet Tubman Museum in Cape May, New Jersey. Cynthia Mullock, who is the executive director, and Lynda Anderson Towns, who's president of the Board of Trustees for the museum. They are experts on the ties that the Harriet Tubman had to South Jersey. While we as a nation have progressed, there's still widespread racial injustices and inequities. The death of George Floyd last year was a sad and tragic reminder that those injustices for African Americans still facing that today. Well, it's important that we continue to learn and educate ourselves about the past. And when we look around the state of New Jersey, there's so many historical sites. But I will tell you, this is one that got by me, and I am so glad that you brought it to our attention. We always used to go to Cape May as young boys with my father, and I'm sure I passed this house and had no idea what the history was. So Cynthia and Lynda, thank you for educating us, and we're looking forward to hearing a little bit more about the museum. Lynda, the Harriet Tubman Museum in Cape May officially opened in September in a pandemic. Tough times to open. Can you tell us a little bit how this museum came to be now?
The museum came to be, it is a building that is a parsonage to our church, Macedonia Baptist Church, that's right next to the Harriet Tubman Museum. And it was a parsonage that our minister, Reverend Robert Davis, once lived in. And, he moved and built his, has his own home. And the house and the parsonage is actually the George Howe house, so it is historical, started to sort of fall in disrepair. As it fell into disrepair, of course, it brought attention from the city of Cape May for, possible ideas, including maybe demolition. That conversation, of course, as church trustees came to the light to us. And so at one of our meetings, two gentlemen came forth and said, we have an idea for the parsonage so that it stays a historical building, and so that it, once again, it will be able to even assist our church and make Cape May a better place. So they talked about creating a Harriet Tubman Museum in the Howe house.
We'll touch more about the location and how it came to be as one of those most significant sites. But Cynthia, there are other less talked about abolitionists in South Jersey. Connections that you could share about some other heroes that are from the South Jersey region who played a pivotal part?
Absolutely. So we call this Freedom's Corner. As Lynda said, we're in the Howell House right now, which is the historic parsonage of the Macedonia Baptist Church. Right across the street from us was Stephen Smith's house. And Stephen Smith was an incredible, legendary entrepreneur. He was born into slavery. He worked second jobs and was able to save up and negotiate buy his own freedom. And he was so entrepreneurial that then he went on to create a lumber and coal company, and he became one of the richest Black men in the United States. And from that background that he had, he wanted to work as an activist with the other abolitionist activists in working for the freedom of so many others. And so from Philadelphia, he was one of the prominent abolitionists there, spent his summers in Cape May, built his house here right across the street in 1846, and also was a partner in one of the first free Black resorts that was right next to his house. Unfortunately, it's no longer extant, but that was the Banneker House, also right across the street from the Harriet Tubman Museum. He worked with another native son of New Jersey, legendary William Still. And William Still is called the father of the Underground Railroad. He, from Philadelphia, would take the accounts of freedom seekers as they crossed to Philadelphia, ask them all about their journey and how they made their way to freedom, how they made their way to Philadelphia. He was one of the conductors of the Underground Railroad, and his seminal work called The Underground Railroad, he published all of these narratives, these firsthand accounts of enslaved people who had made their way to freedom in 1872. And here at the museum, we have a very early edition of that, an 1876 edition of The Underground Railroad by William Still. And it has passed down through 5 generations of a family here in Cape May that's been very influential on the Dempsey family, that has been very influential on the museum's development, the preservation of African-American history in Cape May, and also in the church as well. The Macedonia Baptist Church are partners there.
So the reason why Cape May was, like all of us, hot summers in Philadelphia and the region, we wanted to take the railroad down the shore, and the railroad still runs today to Cape May. It wasn't because of the geography of the Cape and the boats would come over there. They still would come up the traditional routes through Philadelphia.
That book from William Still's accounts, of firsthand accounts from the Underground Railroad, the beacon of the lighthouse led many enslaved people across in boats to our shores, to Cape May's shores. So there are numerous narratives in his accounting of firsthand accounts of people coming to Cape May.
And to add to that, there were many, quite a few free African-American families in Lower Township. And they too were instrumental in the Underground Railroad and also helping enslaved people to have places to stay and places to, again, regain their directions for the next point to Philadelphia. So absolutely, the Bay from Delaware to Cape May shores, instrumental in the Underground Railroad and the movement and the journey to freedom.
Any of us who've taken the modern day ferry knows that's a pretty long row to get across that, and doing it at night so you're not caught. So we're going to have an opportunity, hopefully, when COVID lessens its horrible blow, that we're going to come down there and see it. But take me through some of the artifacts and things that you have in the museum now. What are those key items that you're really glad that you have it?
Well, I think when you enter the museum, the first, what is prominent is that we dedicated the first room to our pastor, Reverend Robert Davis, who was very, very known throughout Cape May County for sharing the culture and the rich contributions of Africa. So in the first room, it has many African artifacts that Reverend Davis shared with this community, Cape May community at large, and just extolled the many riches that Africa had. We started historically from Africa, including in his collection was many artifacts from slavery. So you'll see slave chains from Reverend Davis's collection. You'll see pieces of his African collection that are very valuable. And in addition, sort of the story behind the story is, we had emails from people who sent pictures of slave ships. And so you'll see some of those very valuable artifacts as well. Moving forward, as you move into the area of slavery in New Jersey, again, as Cynthia pointed out, we have one of the first editions of the Underground Railroad written by William Still, which we're very, very proud of. Along that same line, we have a wonderful video that gives you a narrative of how Cape May factors into that story of the Underground Railroad, including some dialogue of Harriet Tubman arriving here in the 1850s.
Wow, remarkable. Lawnside, closer to my district, was also one of those points that they come through. Remarkable what they had to face as human beings. It's still tough to take all of that in. But the Biden-Harris administration is looking to try to accelerate Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. It kind of hit the brakes in the last 4 years. What do you think that will do for the museum and the educational focus of the museum?
We, currently we have so much interest in the museum, and many, when we started last summer, mentioned the $20 bill, and that they were disappointed that it had sort of been halted in its process, and it still may be a bit of a while, but it's sort of renewed that interest in Harriet Tubman and her perseverance and her stubborn, determined nature to get something completed and to right a wrong. So what I think that dollar bill represents is that really long, tough journey that you have to make a difference. And that's what so many people share as they come to our door, that we've waited so long to get in it. Even children draw pictures of the $20 bill when they're learning about it in school. But what they're most, I think, enthused about, along with the movie Harriet Tubman, which was definitely a help, was just looking at this very strong historical woman who just kept pushing despite all the odds.
Wow. Looking forward to it. As we mentioned earlier, it's tough to open up during the pandemic. I would assume as children are going back to school next year in particular, they'll be able to come down there with school trips and actually the living history that you're doing. So this is a question to both of you. As we continue to celebrate Black History Month, are there any resources from the museum that you'd like to share with our audience? Is there something that is special to you, or that you had an opportunity to bring this to light, and for those who might come and visit it for the first time? What would you say? You've got to see what?
Well,
you love it all, I'm sure.
Love it all.
Yes.
You love it all. But what I feel you really need to see is our legacy room, which is just the heart of the community in Cape May. It is a timeline that goes all through Cape May's history. Lynda was absolutely essential, working along with the historical committee in tracking from the 1800s through today, these remarkable figures in Cape May's history and the incredible accomplishments of the African American community here. And so you see all of these photos of Lynda's father, for instance, who integrated the NFL.
Oh, yes. And that's, I think that room is so special because it's healing. As many shore towns, we're an African-American community that's disappearing. Cape May at one point had 30% African-American residents, and now we're down to 3%, 5%, very, very tiny. And so it's a healing room. It's a room to remind all of us that we were here and we did make a difference in Cape May. So the legacy room definitely allows, and we have actually maps with specific African-American families, so they can come back and say, there's my family, including my own, because we were here. We're no longer here as much anymore. And so that's, sort of that untold history, the story behind the story. And the piece that I would most, that I feel one of the best feelings about is it comes to us in June of 2021, and it's by by a sculptor, Wesley Wolford. It's called The Journey to Freedom. It is currently in Cambridge, Maryland. It has its own following. It just take your breath away. So why does it speak to me so much? Because it just has such great detail showing Harriet Tubman shielding a small child and up against the adversity of nature. So if there's anything that you can pick in a timeline of June to July to visit the Harriet Tubman Museum, you want to see The Journey to Freedom. It is just a magnificent piece. There are many magnificent pieces where a small space but we definitely, it just packs such a great emotional punch to it.
And it's about education, how we got here as a nation, how we continue to grow. And I want to thank both of you. This is Black History Month, and it's a reminder we have to continue for those freedoms that were fought so hard for. But Black history is American history, but we have to make sure it's taught appropriately through everybody's eyes, not just one. And we have to respect and understand our neighbors. If anything has taught us what we went through over the course of the last year with so many challenges, we can only do this if we do it together. And what you two are spearheading down there is just another remarkable point of the history of New Jersey. We're looking forward to coming down there in person safely at the end of COVID, so we can see firsthand what we're just so proud to see. So on behalf of a grateful New Jersey, I want to thank both of you for coming on and sharing with the people of New Jersey what we have right in our backyard. So you have a great day,
Thank
be
you.
safe,
Can't wait to see
and we'll
you.
look forward to it.
Look forward to seeing you.
Thanks, Congressman.
Thank you.
And just to remind everyone, our office has been open the entire time of the pandemic. Obviously, we're not always in the office, but we certainly have been answering your calls. So that number for any of your questions that you might have is 856-427-7000. If we don't know it, we'll get you an answer. You have a great day. Take care.